Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm really glad you could join me today. We're diving into something pretty significant, something many of you have probably noticed. What on earth is happening with UK retail? You hear it all the time, right? Big shops closing down, high streets looking emptier. But then online shopping is just booming, and some maybe smaller independent places seem to be doing really well. So the big question is, are we looking at a retail apocalypse, or is it more? Well, an evolution.
It's definitely a time of massive change.
Mhm.
And yeah, the big closures grab the headlines. But it's so important to look underneath all that, at the shifts happening and, where the innovation is actually sparking.
Exactly. And guiding us through this complex picture today is James Carter. James is a top retail analyst, and he wrote this fantastic book, The Consumer Shift, Reimagining Retail in a Digital Age. Your understanding of these changes is second to none, so welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It's
Yeah.
certainly a dynamic area to talk about.
Great. So in this deep dive, we're going to try and unpack the main reasons behind all those store closures we've seen. We'll also look at what parts of retail are actually thriving, maybe against the odds. We'll really get into the impact of e-commerce and all things digital. And importantly, the human side of it, all the jobs, the communities. And then maybe we'll dust off the crystal ball a bit and think about what's next for UK retail. The whole aim here is to give you, listening in, a really clear, nuanced picture of what's going on and why it matters. Okay, let's start with the really visible bit, the closures. The numbers are pretty stark. Over 17,000 UK retail stores gone since 2016. We're talking household names here. Debenhams, Topshop, BHS. It feels quite dramatic. What's fundamentally driving this?
That number, 17,000, it really hits home, doesn't it? It's basically a perfect storm of factors hitting at once. You've got technology, which has completely changed how we find and buy things. Then there are rising rents, especially for those prime high street spots. They just squeeze margins incredibly tight. And maybe the biggest factor is just how much we as consumers have changed. What we want, how we shop, our expectations, it's all shifted.
Right, and then you throw in things like the pandemic and now the cost of living crisis. It feels like they just poured fuel on that fire, didn't they? Accelerated everything.
Exactly right. They didn't start the fire, but they definitely fanned the flames massively. The pandemic, well, it basically forced millions of people online who maybe weren't big online shoppers before. And guess what? A lot of those habits stuck. And the cost of living crisis just makes everyone laser focused on value, on convenience.
Speaking of online, the growth there is just phenomenal. Your work mentions it went from, what, about 9% of sales back in 2012 to over 30% now? That's a seismic shift in just over 10 years. What's the big takeaway from that?
Convenience. Plain and simple. Once people got used to browsing, endless aisles from their sofa, anytime, day or night, that convenience just set a new standard. It became really hard for traditional physical shops to compete just on ease of access alone.
It's easy to just blame it all on, say, Amazon, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Amazon effect. But is it really that simple? Just one or two giants changing everything?
Well, you can't deny the huge influence of the big online players, obviously. But blaming only them misses a huge part of the picture, which is how traditional retail reacted, or often how it didn't react quickly enough. So many established names were just too slow to properly invest in their own websites, their online operations, making it all work together smoothly. They lagged behind.
You use Debenhams as a key example in your book. Why is their story so telling?
Debenhams is a classic case study, really. There's a massive name, huge history, but they were weighed down by these enormous legacy costs, all those big department stores, and crucially, they were slow, really slow to properly get their heads around the shift to online. Their digital side just never felt as slick as the online native players. And then, the final chapter. Boohoo, an online-only fashion retailer, buys the brand, Debenhams, but none of the stores. That tells you everything about where the perceived value had shifted, doesn't it? Digital presence versus physical footprint, at least in that part of the market.
Okay, that really paints a picture of the challenges and why some big names struggled. But like we said earlier, it's not all doom and gloom. Where are we seeing success stories? What's actually thriving?
Yeah, it's definitely not a uniform decline. And what's fascinating is the energy in certain niches. Independent shops, for instance, lots of them are doing really well, especially the ones that get the idea of retail as experience. Think about shops that mix things up, like a vintage shop that also has a great little coffee bar, or a bookshop that turns into a wine bar in the evening, or record shops putting on live music. They're creating reasons to visit.
So it's about making it a destination, offering something more than just buying stuff, something you can't just click and get online. You call it the hybrid model, I think?
That's exactly it. People need a reason to go out to a physical store now. They still want to browse, touch things, try things on, maybe chat to someone knowledgeable. They want that social interaction, that discovery. The experience itself becomes a massive part of the value.
And what about the bigger established names? Are any of them managing to adapt successfully?
Yes, definitely. We are seeing some adapt quite impressively. Look at Next. They've built a really strong online operation that works hand in glove with their stores. Very slick. M&S is in the middle of this huge ongoing effort to modernize, trying to improve both online and in-store. It's a work in progress, but they're trying. And then you have the outlier, Primark, which is fascinating because they're thriving, largely without selling online. They rely purely on price, fast fashion trends, and making the stores themselves quite compelling places to browse. Huge footfall. Although you do have to wonder how sustainable that pure physical model is in the long, long run. It's a big question mark for many.
Let's dig a bit more into that digital side then. You mentioned successful online first brands. What's the secret sauce for companies like Boohoo, ASOS, or Gymshark? Why have they grown so fast?
Well, they were born digital, weren't they? It's in their DNA. That gives them incredible agility. They understand the online world intuitively. They're masters of using social media, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, to connect directly with their customers, build communities, and drive sales really effectively. They just speak the language of the internet fluently.
And technology doesn't stand still, does it? It's not just about having a decent website anymore. What are the big tech advancements really shaking things up in retail right now?
Oh, absolutely. AI, artificial intelligence, is becoming huge for personalization.
Yeah.
Using algorithms to look at what you've browsed, what you've bought, and then show you stuff you might actually like, getting quite sophisticated. Augmented reality, AR, is also becoming more common, using your phone to see how furniture looks in your room or virtually trying on clothes or makeup. And then there's virtual reality, VR. Still pretty early days for widespread shopping use here in the UK, maybe. But if you look at places like China, you see VR shopping malls emerging. It gives you a glimpse of potentially more immersive online experiences down the line.
So, with all this digital progress, what does that mean for the good old physical store? Are they just going to disappear?
No, I really don't think they're heading for obsolescence. Not at all. But their main job, that's definitely changing. We'll probably see fewer massive stores whose only goal is shifting huge volumes of product. Instead, physical spaces are likely to become more like showrooms, places to experience the brand, touch the product, or maybe brand experience centers telling a story, creating engagement, or even community hubs offering different services, places to connect. The focus shifts from just the transaction to creating an atmosphere, building a relationship.
Of course, all this change has a massive impact on people working in retail. What's the human cost? But are there also new kinds of opportunities emerging?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. And sadly, yes, the store closures mean significant job losses in traditional shop floor roles. The numbers in recent years are pretty stark. But at the same time, new jobs are being created. Think about digital merchandising, people managing the complex logistics of online orders, social media managers for retail brands. The skills needed are changing. There's a real need for people to adapt, maybe reskill.
And what about the wider community impact? Empty shops on the high street, that can really drag an area down, can it? It's more than just economics.
Absolutely. It affects the whole feel of a place, its identity. Empty units look demoralizing, footfall drops, and that hurts the businesses that are still there. It's a negative cycle. But on the positive side, we are seeing some really interesting creative thinking from local councils and community groups. They're looking at repurposing those empty spaces, maybe turning them into co-working hubs, pop-up art galleries, indoor markets, finding new ways to bring life back.
It sounds like a chance maybe to rethink what those spaces are for, not just places to buy things.
Exactly. The future, especially for physical retail, could be less about being just a temple of consumption and more about being part of the social infrastructure, places for people to interact, share experiences, build community.
Okay, so let's look forward now. Crystal ball time. What do you think the UK retail scene might look like, say, 5 years from now?
I think we'll see more mixed-use spaces, definitely. Retail blended with housing, offices, leisure-making, local centers, more vibrant, more multi-purpose. Maybe the dominance of the giant identical chains will lessen a bit, hopefully giving more room for localized, curated shops, things driven by the community. We'll almost certainly see more click-and-collect hubs, blurring online and offline further. I suspect we'll see a continued rise in brands that have strong eco-credentials, real sustainability baked in. Consumers are demanding it. And maybe more subscription models for certain things, getting regular deliveries.
And the high street itself. It's struggling now, we know that. But do you hold out hope for a proper resurgence? Are you cautiously optimistic?
It's facing huge hurdles, no doubt about it. But yes, I think there is a path to a meaningful comeback. Cautiously optimistic is probably the right phrase. It needs a mix of things, though. Retailers have to keep innovating, using tech smartly, creating great experiences. We need supportive policies from government, local and national, and just a collective imagination, really. A willingness to see these streets as more than just rungs of shops.
James, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise. We've covered so much ground from complex algorithms all the way to artisan coffee shops. It really shows the breadth of the changes.
It's been my pleasure. It's a
Good.
sector that never stands still, that's for sure. Always plenty to talk about.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you so much for tuning in to the deep dive on Westferry Times. Don't forget to subscribe to Westferry Times if you want more conversations like this. And please do like and share this video if you found it useful or interesting. Until next time, stay curious.